So this lecture is on sustainable development goals in practice. You may still wonder why sustainable development is counted as scientific conduct. But as you can see here, because if we see the planet Earth as a whole, then we have an ethical issues here. Now the current practice is to bring in with these goals. So no matter what you do, from now on, you have to fulfill these sustainable development goals. Now recently, like last year or 2 years ago, they have developed into 17 goals. So today we would like to review what's happening here. Scientific conduct and ethics. So what is sustainable development, or why sustainable development? This is a key issue of ethical issues. Do we have enough resources to sustain? I mean, as human being, you know, we are using all the resources. We know that from the footprint analysis, you know, footprint, not this footprint. We know that we are consuming more resources than before. So if you, no matter what you do, scientific research or, you know, as a human being, as an individual human being, so no matter what you do, you should consider the general planet Earth's benefit, not your own benefits, because you don't own planet Earth, right? So we have discussed this issue. The only thing that you may say that you own planet Earth is that, oh, I have a patent. Even so, a patent is application rather than owning a species. No one can really own any species. And the last lecture, most people would like to stick with the urgency, to stick with climate change. But then recently, we changed that into global change. So if you have a large scope, these are all linked together, right? All these sustainable development issues all linked together. We have this, what we call sustainable development goal, because we are using all the resources. Like climate change, we may consider the exploitation of fossil fuel. Fossil fuels are just those carbon materials got trapped in the fossil. They were originally from plant or animals, but after millions of years, they got trapped. And then we dig them out and use them as coal or diesel, or even natural gas in some part. And they are not sustainable. I mean, one day we will finish them all. So even energy. And in the last century, we have witnessed temperature increase of 0.6 degrees. We know if we follow this trend, perhaps in this century, 21st century, we're going to see temperature rises in 6 to 8 degrees. Now, many of those international treaties or government treaties, they aim at controlling the temperature increase to what? This is 6 to 8 degrees. Last century, we increased about 0.6. We already seeing a global change, significant. Okay, so we would like to turn it down to 2 degrees. So that's a 2 degree hope. Now, so all things are related, and that's what we call now is an ethical issue. So no matter what you do, we cannot spoil Mother Nature this way. So the concept of sustainable development is that we are not supposed to use all the resources so that the next generation cannot enjoy them. Now that's a very important point, the next generation. In other words, we may put the blame on us. Remember last week we had the Rita's video. Now she's very famous, you know, every week she has a video complaining that, okay, the adults, the old folks have used up all the resources and they are still just talking, so that is an ethical issue. To give you a little bit background, actually, we came along for the Sustainable Development Goals long time ago. The first conference was in Stockholm, 1972. So the Stockholm conference defined what is sustainable development. The sustainable development goal, we have to consider the environment, the economy, and the society all become sustainable. In order to achieve that, we have to do something about it. So they came together in 1972, came up with many guidelines and set up goals. And then I would say another hallmark, 1987 outcome and features, and before that, or after 72 and until 1992. In 1992, we finally developed this environment, economy, and the society to make it become sustainable. You have all learned this in your high school, right? But in 1992, they actually pinpoint to particular goals, okay, under these three domains. 1992 was a significant one because that was held in Brazil. Brazil, you all know, that was the last rainforest in Amazon 河。 And now actually Amazon is also under threat again and again because of the cry or ask of resources. They open up the trees, they open up the forests, knock down trees, there are mines, gold mines and so on, and different kinds of minerals there. So the greedy business people actually open up there. Starting from 1992, they recognized that was a threat. So at the time, the UN Conference on Human Environment and the Earth Summit was held there in Rio de Janeiro, 1992. That was actually the hallmark. And then at that time, they like to detail all the different components for environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. And then after that, there was the 2002 John Naisbitt. And then between that, there was the smaller organization of 1997 discussion over the real, this is the real, they call it +5 to details all the content of it. And then 2002, actually 2002 summit was kind of disappointing. Nothing really new came out. Okay, so they went back to 2012 again. They went back to Amazon because Amazon's problem could not be solved or had not been solved. In 1972, actually there was the key issues of, they call it the North-South issue, 南北問題. All those European countries and also those North American countries like Canada and the US, they are the rich and they are in the cold weather. Okay. Interestingly, all those people living in those cold weather, they are more energetic, and or they actually own more resources. So the poverty are actually found mainly in the south. 窮嗰啲人就喺南邊. So at the time, including South America, Africa, Southeast Asia countries, all those countries are actually lagging behind. So therefore, they had that conference and then move on in 2012, and not really doing something, but until 2012, they started to think about this environmental resilience and biodiversity, natural resources and pollution under the consideration. And then they detailed down the social sustainability, including the empowerment and governance. And then consultation involving many different stakeholders. And then, of course, for economy, economic growth, improve the efficiency, the stability, and so on. So these big triangle are still working this way. But now we know that business could not be as usual. Because if we only consider all these three big triangles, we have totally ignored one thing. Just keep talking, environment, the society, and the economy, right? So Greta was very upset. You adults only concerned with economic sustainability. What's that mean? Economic sustainability, GDP keep going up. If GDP keep going up, the gross domestic production, that's economic values, right? That means also the consumption of resources, right? So how dare you say so? Now, that is mainly because in the past we have not considered all this, right? I mean, we consider all this environment, economy, and society. In between, there will be social justice, improved efficiency, and enhance environmental health, and so on. But then we ignore one thing: resources. Resources. We just keep saying, thinking, okay, because the planet Earth, we all rely on energy from sunlight, right? So presumably everything will be sustainable as long as we have sunlight, as long as the planet Earth is spinning around. But there are many resources that is not sustainable, including the fossil fuel, because fossil fuels were just materials trapped underground, under the soil, or inside or down under the ocean at the sea floor. And now we dug them out to convert those carbon materials into what? CO2 is the byproduct. Still remember the first law and the second law of thermodynamics, right? First law of thermodynamics is that energy or materials could neither be destroyed nor created. All right, so any materials that you are working on, like solid waste treatment or air pollution, they do not disappear. They just go somewhere else. Like a landfill, you just dig a hole and then put them in. Or you burn them, you trash them, you burn them, and then they will be converted into carbon dioxide and something else. You still need some space to kind of store the ash from incineration, right? The same thing is true for the fossil fuel resources. We are going to deplete. The same thing is true for what? Nuclear energy. Don't think that nuclear resources is sustainable. They are not. All those radioisotopes or those chemicals that will release radioisotopes, they have limited amount on Earth. Don't ask me why we have water on Earth. 4 billion years ago, there was no water. There were different theories, right? Suddenly there was some other star that will hit on Earth, and then all those materials are on Earth, and they could be used, but they are not sustainable. So from now on, we have to consider resources. How are you going to fit this rank in? So this is my question. How are we going to fit this rank in? We only consider the 3 rings. And now we have 1 ring to fit in. Any suggestion? In other classes, we usually have small group discussion first. Would you like to do that now? Four in a group. Now we have 2 groups. How are you going to, 4, and then you 4. How are we going to fit this ring in? That is the question. I'll give you 10 minutes. Okay, let's start.